Hey, Cairo, everyone. Thank you for joining our Arisha Devotion webinar this morning. Please share this message with your family, your loved ones, um, and the people within your community. As always, we hope to inspire you all with the wisdom of Obatala, of Olokun, Ifa, and all of the Orisha. As I typically do, we will start this morning's devotion was an invocation to Obatala. Biukule mi bowa getting ajija. Mafajija jemole getting ajija. Biarule mi bowa getting ajija. Mafajija jemole getting ajija. Biufole mi bowa getting ajija. Mafajija jemole getting ajija. Biyami le mi bowa getting ajija. Mafajija jemole getting ajija. This week, I was watching a pretty good series that's almost towards the end, called Secret Invasion, where Samuel L. Jackson reprised his role as Nick Fury, and which I could say is probably one of the most impactful or the most interesting Marvel shows within the last couple of years. And it appears also that Samuel had some involvement as an executive producer in this project. After I seen it, I went on social media and I seen there were a couple of critics about how terrible Secret Invasion is. The market is just so oversaturated with Marvel films, how horrible comic book films are, so forth, and whatnot. Outside of my studies, which I have a pretty expansive library, pretty expansive, never-ending Amazon shopping cart list full of books that I'm hoping to ascertain. But I previously had a vice with comic books, and anyone who bought comic books in the past, it's a vice. If you buy one, then you have to buy the other because you want to know what happens next. And that's if you're on one series, you go to one series in the next. So you could easily leave with a whole box, just intending to get one or two comic books. But behind the CGI and the green screen lies a great source of inspiration that you will see in several comic books. And it's easy to miss what the intentions of the writers are. And it's something in this art of storytelling that is indicating an event that can be called a prior genesis, as one of my good um, mentors, a Hugan in the Vodun tradition, Baba Nuheri Mese Ogun, who wrote the book, The God's Genes Decoded. He saw the similarities between the Vodun practice, the Kamal practice, and the Yoruba. Is a really good book. I do really recommend it, but he goes hard into the sciences and how this manifests within African culture. So he dubbed this term prior Genesis. And it, to me, is one of the most inspirational religious liturgies. It's a state of existence where life was, I suppose, subsisting or existing before it was like suitable. So it's a purpose or a point in creation to where things weren't able to be weren't able to rise, the earth wasn't able to be a sustaining habitat. It's that state of existence before the first time that creation had happened. I hope you all are following me with that interpretation of prior Genesis. How was life existing before the creative act? And as we look around and we see everything in existence, everything was intentionally created. I repeat, everything was intentionally created. And this is the beginning of the motivation that I found was that we have to continue or start to find and push our own science in our own culture. For what is accepted as science, sometimes in the disciplines as biological psychology, neural anatomy, astrophysics, even psychiatry, that they're not 100% influenced by empiricism, by research and experiments. Sometimes some statements and theories are influenced by private donors or maybe clandestine think tanks. For an example, the Big Bang Theory is not solely based on empirical physics or astronomy or hard science. The Big Bang Theory was introduced by a Jesuit, George Lemaitre, in 1927. And this idea that was so different from what the scientists thought before ended up being accepted as scientific or empirical truth. Catholicism influenced his foundings. It's the idea that of the Big Bang Theory and Western cosmogony and Western cosmology is that creation at times can seem as if it's a random, chaotic act, that there was some luck that life was able to be maintained with no problem. And to us, this idea is irrational. Think about the exactness of creation. If the moon was significantly closer to the earth, if the moon was just out of its normal placement in the cosmos, that we would experience complete chaos on this earth. There will be massive tides, significant coastal floodings, and recall that it's the moon that manipulates the tides. So the environment will be significantly cooler. The magnetism from the gravitational pull will cause more earthquakes due to the heating of the mantle and more volcanic activity. So it is this exactness of this positioning of the earth that we can't just pass off as a random created, a random chaotic act, as if this just happened by chance. Are we to believe that this is a spontaneous, unconscious design of some entity called the universe or quote unquote God? It just does not fit the African state of mind. So let's circle back briefly, and please, hopefully y'all could stand with me for a moment. Let me cycle back to what I was speaking about in regards to comic books for as I was coming up. So Storm was one of my favorites as a child, one of my favorite X-Men. And I was reading, as I have a couple of old books, and I was reading into her story. And she was a child of Ndare, who was the princess of this African ethnic group that had this lineage of African priestess, or which they call, sorcerers or whatnot, who have these strong powers to manipulate nature. So her parents were killed off in an air raid, at a botched air raid at the age of 6, which left her as an orphan in this extreme case of claustrophobia from pulling herself out of the wreckage. And she lived her life as a thief, a very skilled thief. She rolled with a gang of thieves who sustained themselves from stealing. Now, due to those hardships, it took one person to see this value within herself, transformed herself, and ended up becoming a leader of the X-Men after Cyclops left. She ended up being the leader of the Morlocks, and she ended up becoming the Queen of Wakanda after saving T'Challa and marrying him later on in life. So despite these humble beginnings, she made a complete success of herself. Tony Starks was a millionaire, quote unquote playboy, so to speak, an alcoholic at a young age. And he made a lot of money during private defense contracts. He would use his designs for warfare and give it to the highest bidder. So in the comic books, it was saying he made this trip to Vietnam to where he was taken as a prisoner of war. And he started building weapons for this terrorist group that said they will release him after he finished building all of their technology, which probably wasn't the case. So when he was taken prisoner, he was there with someone called Jensen. And Jensen asked him, when they were, held in captivity, do you have any children? And he said, no. Do you have a wife? And he said, no. And then Jensen laughed and said that, for a millionaire, you're the man that has everything, but have nothing at the same time. What's the purpose of your life if you don't have a family or children to go home to? So he was illustrating that Tony was living a reckless life filled with things that are just, not sustainable, that doesn't matter. It doesn't go into detail why, but Jensen ended up sacrificing his life for Tony. That allowed him to escape. And from that point forward, he transformed himself to a symbol. He used his intellect not for profit, or to benefit humans, but he became the Iron Man. So someone who uses his technology to benefit people, and actually someone who was so egotistical and someone who was so self-centered that he sacrificed himself to save the whole world. Last one, hopefully y'all will stay with me, is the story of Peter Parker, someone who needed money for a camera and was a freelancer. And he decided to be a wrestler after he already got bit by the spider, and which gave him super strength. So the manager was shorting him money and stealing money from him. And then when he wanted to confront the manager said, hey, this is not my problem. This is what you signed up for. It's not my problem. One day later, the manager was getting robbed, and Peter could have stopped that robber. And when he ran on through, he said to the manager, as he was yelling, stop that person, stop that person. He's like, hey, it's not my problem. It's your problem. So later on that day, that same man was going on a robbing spree, ended up robbing a convenience store. And this man tried to stop the robber, and the man ended up shooting and killing that robber. As Peter got home, he ended up finding out that that person who tried to stop the robber was his Uncle Ben. And his Uncle Ben, he died. Peter had the power to do something and chose not to, but Uncle Ben didn't have any power and decided to do the right thing. So of course, the quote that's always said is that by his uncle is that if you have the power to change something, you have the moral obligation and the responsibility to do so. So this is when Peter transformed himself into, I guess you can say, an icon or a character, and took on the moral responsibility of looking after his neighborhood and keeping it free from crime. So all of these stories that are saturated in these comic books from several different characters, they communicate this idea of prior Genesis. It's that state of existence before one has arrived. And each one of the mentioned individuals decided to devote their life to a principle, to become an icon of that principle, being someone who experienced some type of hardship, and then at this point decides that they will not allow anyone else to suffer that same fate. So when we're reading these stories of prior Genesis, of the Orisha, the creators, our cosmology, our cosmogony, is that they're relating something to us, is that you at any point of your life can define your direction, and you can make your own story regardless of any type of shortfalls or past mistakes. Once you marry your principle, once you marry your purpose, you become more than that one purpose. You become more than that one individual. You become a representative. You become an icon, a symbol of that particular principle that you decided to marry. You became more than that man. You became more than that woman once you decided to make that step. Now, people, can make the mistake of hypervigilance as a masked form of spirituality, quick to pull the faults out of someone, quick to shame someone, quick to attempt to embarrass someone when people are going through their journey on trying to arrive and trying to discover oneself. What I will say is that hopefully, as just as much as your hardships are being exposed, hopefully all of the positive things that you have contribute to, or the positive thing that you create, is getting the equal attention. Despite your challenges, that you can still be whom you want to be, And despite your challenges, quote unquote, God or your Orisha had not given up on you due to your past mistakes. There's a story in Ofun that really illustrates this story, that despite your hard coming and despite past mistakes, is that your deity had not gave up on you. The story of Ofun, this is the Ofun in 16 Kairis, of course, that speaks about an event early in Obatala's existence. And Ofun is a very old Odu. So of course we know an Odu is an elder that actually had existed, and we are recalling the experiences of that deity. So we went through Akaran, we went through Albara. In due time, we will go over the rest. But Ofun is a very elder Orisha, and is giving you accounts from an olden place in time. So here it speaks about the original assignment that was given to Obatala. Some people said that this wasn't true. Some folks said, it's a myth. But we were actually able to have the essay that confirms one of Obatala's downfalls and one of his taboos. So the name of the diviners is Afun point to good. Afun point to good. Let us call it white chalk. Afun point to good. Let us call it red chalk. Ofun point to good. Let us call it Morio Opeyeye. If a divination was performed for Obatala, who was called Oshala or Sedeng Mongbo. So in this story, and another interesting thing as well is that Obatala here was given the praise name Oshala ni Igbakeji Aletamare. So this praise name reinforces Obatala's placement in the Orisha hierarchy and Orisha cosmology. So it says here in Ofun that Obatala, of course known as Oshala, was next to Aletamare, and Aletamare gave this type of ashe or light to Obatala, hence why he takes on the name Oshala ni Igbakeji Aletamare, which means the second one next to Aletamare, or the second one that's gifted with the creative ashe of Aletamare. And he was to bring this type of energy, this type of ashe, this type of light into the world. So when Oshala and the rest of the Orisha went to talk with Aletamare, as Aletamare was giving its plans on what was going to happen next on Earth. And they said, after we created this Earth, what was the purpose of this Earth? Who is going to live here? Aletamare told the Orisha that it will be human beings, Indians, that will populate this planet. This is the planet for them. So Aletamare continued to tell the Orisha that it will be Obatala that will be the one that will mold the human beings. So Aletamare is the one that gives the Ashe, what gives them the Emi, their own personal life force. In Kemet, we call it the Ba or the Bayet. In Akan, they call it the Abra or the Abrawa, which is your own personal life force energy that is born from the creator, so to speak. As we say, Emi is the breath of life. It's telling you that through different breathing techniques is how you amplify the ashe of Aletamare, or how do you amplify that own personal life force within your body and redirect it as you need to be. But those are three different traditions that speak about that personal life force, which is within someone. So Aletamare, again, will put its ashe or emi into the person. And Obatala will be the one that will be molding and designing and creating the humans. So Aletamare put his ashe into them, and Obatala will design them. However, at this point of time, Obatala liked to drink palm wine. And so when Obatala drunk, he drunk into excess. And when he was drunken, he was still doing his function. He was still creating and molding individuals. So when he would mold some individuals, is that some of his forms will be abnormally shaped. He molded a dwarf. He molded someone that was blind. He was molding people who had different types of disabilities and handicaps. Some will be missing some parts, some will be crippled, so forth and so on. And so up until this day, it was still Obatala who was molding the human beings, and the story ends there. From the account of the story that I have ends there. So of course it's inferred that Obatala did stop drinking after the fact. And there's a common story on how Obatala is failing due to an abbreviation. So this essay communicates a lot of things. It demonstrates the irreversible rank of Obatala, but it also reinforces Obatala's icon as one of being pure, um, ethical, moral, psychological, holistic purity is the icon of his power. And with him, even though he made some substantial mistakes, is that he still never lost his rank from Eledamare. So this is what I'm extracting to when I see some people will make mistakes and they think that they will irreversibly fall from grace, that you would make a mistake and you're casted off forever. And I'm not saying some very intentional, unethical acts that becomes conditioned behavior. But individuals makes mistakes along their journey. People are developing and they are growing. But it's an idea that you can make a mistake and you'll just be discarded for the rest of your life. For an example, at the place that I work with, I'm trying to get someone hired, and I think the background is clean. But they were being really hyper vigilant about this background check, and we won't hire this person if this is that. And to me, is that there is no point of a quote unquote departments of correction or rehabilitation if we're going to continue to judge somebody over something that they did years ago. I don't like that. If this person had made their mistakes, you did your time, it's not for me to judge. Some things will be all right to know, and I suppose of over certain offenses that may affect the individuals who may be a vulnerable population. But the idea that we keep hanging things over people's head perpetually is used as psychological warfare and absolutely unnecessary. I really feel that if people make mistakes, you can learn from your mistakes and you have the respect and you should have the right to move forward and continue to design yourself, continue to be who you know that you can be. One mistake should not speak volumes to the rest of your life. Obatala still made this mistake and still moved forward. And not only did he change his ways, but as we all know, Obatala and any person that's initiated to Obatala is that you have the moral obligation to take care of the handicap. He is the patron saint or Orisha rather of those who have physical and mental handicaps. And in the old days, which should still be now, and something that I still carry with myself, is that if anyone has a type of handicap, it's taboo for you to send that person away because Obatala was responsible for making them. This is how he developed, and this is how he became this icon that we know today. So this idea of prior Genesis is a little bit more relatable than the idea of the gods of the other cultures. This idea of perfectionism at the very first moment, and if we fail to be perfect, is that we give these unrealistic expectations of life and how we see ourselves in it. Some people may see themselves as dirty, as failures, dirty creatures. We're sinful, we're incompetent because we're going through hardships in life. But life is meant to be hard, and these hard experiences are developing ourselves. But we could be jaded, we can be extremely hard or impatient on our spouse, on our children, on our colleagues, on our loved ones, without patience and compassion, because we have this expectation that everything should be perfect, everything should be right the first time. God isn't perfect. God got creation right. So if God can get creation right the first time, then what's your problem? Unrealistic expectation. We are expecting results and we desire to have what we want when we want it the first time. And again, these are unrealistic expectations. Sadly, is that there are several people who lose patience within themselves. This causes depression. This causes suicide. Sadly, I know several Olorishas that are dealing with some major depressive episode. And sadly, I know initiates and practitioners who sadly committed suicide. This is an unrealistic expectation. I have a gift from where Obatala will show me people who are either contemplating suicide or depressed before it happens. And it's at times it's from people who are very far away from me, people who I don't know at all. I feel like it's awkward and uncomfortable to reach out to these individuals. But after it started happening, I know that it doesn't fail. So these stories and these experiences that I'm seeing and the vision that I'm blessed with, it is that it gives a message for me to tell individuals that it is okay to make a mistake, to be kind, to be patient with yourselves, and really tell the other individuals to really just chill, be patient, and chill with the hypervigilance towards others. Be so obsessed with your own spiritual devotion to where we have no time to in an unsolicited fashion to judge others, but rather offer light and offer the example that we can give to them to follow. This is another um, pattern that is in the Odu of Ogunda, which we'll go over in some time as well. So this is a story of Yemoja and Ogunda, and she took on the praise name of Mojeleu, and she was the wife of Okere, and this was the chief of the town of Sakti. So both of them, Yemoja and Okere, that they had some type of deformity or some type of physical handicap, or assuming handicap, so to speak. So the king of Shakti's teeth protruded, and Yemoja's breasts were extremely large. They say that her breasts were so large that they actually touched the ground. And so when they got together, they said that, you know, if we're going to make this work, you must never ridicule me. You must never speak about my taboo. And so this is how the essay starts off. It's like, if you tell me your taboo and I'll tell you mine. Is the name of the diviners. So you know, the king said, you know, you must never ridicule my teeth. And so Yemojad said, okay, you know, I can do that. But you know, you must never speak about my deformity or my taboo or whatnot. You know, don't say anything about my breast. So both of them had an agreement. So they had this agreement, and the king of Shakti had this room that he used to dry his arrows in the sun. It had a whole bunch of Ogun, you know, medicine and stuff in there. And he asked Yemoja not to enter that place. And he said that this is that women must not enter this place. This is not for you. So Yemoja agreed that, you know, that she will stay out of there. And one day when the king of Shakti was on his way hunting, is that she had a son that was sick, and she needed to get some medicine from that forbidden room to where it was kept at. And when the king arrived, he noticed that something was different inside of this forbidden room. And then when he inquired Yemojad what happened, Yemojad said that, you know, she took some medicine in there to heal her child. So the king was very displeased, and he started verbally abusing Yemojad. You know, he started insulting her with with her large breast, which he wasn't supposed to say about. That was their agreement. And she was so unhappy that she packed all of her things, packed her child, and packed a pot of water, and decided to leave. And when they were leaving, she also took some, you know, some local herbs and stuff like that, and she started to head to the place of her father. And when the king noticed that she left, he was looking high and low for her. And he sent some officials to go out, find her, and bring her back. So as Yemoja was trying to escape and running, and escaping and running, she slipped and she fell. The pot of water started gushing out, became a pool, and this water became the beginning of the Ogun River. So Yemoja had become that icon of the depths that what this spirit will do and the sacrifice that this spirit will make to ensure the safety of children. Now, many are conflating the functions of Yemoja and Olokun. Many are mixing the rank of Yemoja with Yemu, and these are all distinctly different Orisha. She is a very fearsome female force. It is said that she trained with Ogun, and Fela Kuti was said to invoke Yemoja and Ogun collectively, and that Yemoja protects the same with the same ferociousness of Ogun. So she uses her function to master Ogun, master charms and medicines and herbs for the protection of children. Even though she made a mistake, even though her mistake, it was justifiable, but her sacrifices had almost installed her as this type of icon, as what type of self-sacrificing mother Yemoja is, and how she protects her children. So it is my belief that through these hard times, that each individual, they come to meet their other selves or their higher selves, is that through these hard times, one can transform into a person that you could not even dream of even existing. Someone with this admirable character trait that we would never know that could exist if we had not went through that hard time, if we had not had devoted our lives to a type of purpose, and we are able to extract our function out of pain, and we become these icons in a sense. Despite any type of opposition, despite any types of negativity, you still have the power to transform your life. Real briefly, I'll give you these quick stats, is that on July 27th, 1981, it was a young boy, Adam Walsh, that was abducted out of Sears, a Sears store in Florida. I think it was Hollywood, Florida. And while he was shopping with his parents. And so the child was abducted and was missing for some time. And the parents were trying to be optimistic, but they were still expecting the worst. Adam was found on August 10th, 1981. They found a decapitated head of the boy. He was 6 years old, but to this day, they never found the body. So of course, with this loss could cripple any parent. This loss could have destroyed the fiber of what it is that makes a man, or what makes a woman, and have someone in a never-ending depressive downward spiral. Experiencing this loss and understanding that no one should be experiencing any type of trauma like this, his father became a victim rights advocate. His father was John Walsh, and he started the America's Most Wanted TV show, where they recovered 43 kids, missing children, had captured 1,100 criminals, and 17 of those were on the FBI's most wanted list. Les Brown was born in poverty to a woman who got pregnant while her husband was away at the war, and he was ended up being raised by adoptive parents. And despite these, being young, Black, in poverty in Liberty City, not knowing his parents, is that Les Brown became in my eyes, one of the best motivational speakers and the best business coach, and has a very impressive portfolio. So I would highly recommend watching Les Brown at the Georgia Dome, and Les Brown is Possible, and they're all on YouTube. David Goggins as well was brought up in a horrible environment, experienced domestic violence to where the parents were fighting, the father was beating the mother, being called nigger every day, going to school in an extremely racist high school, had death threats every day, and being so powerless and being so afraid every day of his life, is that David Goggins is probably labeled as one of the most toughest men alive. He is undisputedly one of the world's best endurance athletes. He completed over 60 endurance races. He had the Guinness Book of World Records of pull-ups, completing 4,030 pull-ups in 17 hours. He's the only member of the U.S. Armed Forces to complete SEAL training, including 2 Hell Weeks in the United States Ranger School as he graduated as an enlisted man of honor, and the Air Force tactical controller training as well. And all of these trainings you can die at. And him, a young, not only the only person to do so, but a black man at that, had achieved so much despite coming from significant hardship. So other cultures and the idea of cosmology, the idea that God created everything perfectly the first time, it doesn't necessarily fit with the African perspective, that there is perfection in creation. And the stories of the coffin text that captures the cosmology of Ra, when Ra says, I found no place that I could stand. I have found no place where I could stand until I put my foundations of Ma'ah. This story is telling you that Ra went through its periods where it had to evolve, learn, and change. Ra was procrastinating. Ra overslept. Ra was depressed. But Ra was continuing to learn from his mistakes until he was able to build his life in spiritual law in order to what we call Odu in our creation. The Orisha are going through learning processes, and they are learning from their mistakes, and they're creating order. Ejilashe Bor, as we discussed, on the very first day it was conflict. And Obatala still created, and he became that patron deity of creation. Obatala learned, Obatala changed. Obefun, when Obatala lost the war because of wearing color, he became an icon to where we see Obatala as a spirit in the white cloth, white beads, and this very extremely strong spiritual power that is supreme to any Orisha is founded in this white. So in short, there are some people who will make it their quest in life to get you off your path with negativity and naysayers. My message here to you is to say that it is okay, is that you can renew yourself, renew your purpose, and one no longer has to be a victim of your past. Is that you can define yourself to where you want to go, to who you want to become, and that your morals, your values, and the things that you cherish, the things that you stand for, will live forever and they won't die. People will see the sacrifices that you make and become highly inspired for them. My last two sci-fi references, y'all, and I'll leave you for the day, and thank you for your patience. Another show that I absolutely enjoyed was The X-Files. And through this show, Fox Mulder was going through this never-ending quest to expose corruption within the FBI by a secret organization that grew within it. So when he was going through his journey, his pursuit, because his sister was abducted and taken, is that there was many high-ranking individuals that wanted to assassinate him. And this high-ranking man, the cigarette-smoking man, stopped somebody when they were going to kill him. And it was like, what are you doing? You know, we should be killing Mulder. And he said, if you kill this one man, you're going to turn one man's mission to another person's crusade. Our actions and our devotions that we take are highly inspirational to other people, but you will never know it. There are several people that may look up to you, but they'll never say a word. So stay motivated and just know that there's many eyes on you, and there's several people that are praying for a gift that we are debating and self-conscious of bringing into this world. So keep that in mind. Keep moving forward and see your goal, even if you're not certain of your ability to deliver. Just keep moving forward. Understand what are your principles, what do you stand for, and what is the symbol, and what do you want your life to mean to someone else. You will always be protected, and even as the Osha Pipe says, Obatala will stand behind the one who speaks the truth. The last reference is an event that happened in one of the Avengers, and this was carried on to one of the comics. So this was this was carried on into one of the movies. So this was an invasion from Ultron, this artificial intelligence robot that was destroying the city. Hawkeye only has nothing special about him. He can just see really well, and he's an archer. So the whole city was getting destroyed, and Hawkeye was sitting with the Scarlet Witch. And the Scarlet Witch is a mutant that has a very strong psychic power, who was part responsible for what had happened. So Hawkeye was reloading his arrows, and he seen this young girl scared. So he was joking with them while she was standing there. And he says, I know this is really weird, right? We're sitting here on top of a flying city. We're fighting these robots, and I'm only having a bow and arrow. And he was saying this to the Scarlet Witch. He said, I'm not here for you. I'm not going to stay here with you. I don't care about your past. I don't care about what you have done. But if you leave this cave here, you become an avenger, and the choice is yours. It was at this point that the Scarlet Witch decided that her past no longer mattered, that the pain that she had caused, the things that she had done had no more relevance, is that she had the power to define herself at this moment and that she was going to take control of her life. So I say this to you. Your past is no longer relevant. You decide who you want to be and where you want to go. You renew your mind, your purpose, and do not let the negativity or the negative self-talk keep you stagnant. And it's not how you start, it is where you finish. I would recommend practicing affirmations of self-respect. Is that there are, of course, we know the power of words, and there are several things that we may say and think that may hold us back. But can we think about how many things that we say that will push us forward? So I would really recommend using words of self-love and self-respect, and release any type of thing that had happened in the past. Think about your life as a whole. What is your icon? What is the meaning of your life? What experiences have you had? And even though it's a major setback, would you want someone else to experience those things as well? Turn that pain into purpose and set your life up with some significant meaning to help the next person that is behind you. All right, so one moment, I'm gonna go through a couple of questions here. Okay, Hamidu Akaro Baba. Akaro, one question. Would you say that an example of Iwakwele may be similar to the Kamal principle of Ma'at, harmony, balance, law, and order? Yeah. So I would say so. There's another term that I would use. So Ma'at is basically Odu. It's the very same deity. Like Shashat is the palm tree, so that's the E King. Odu is Ma'at, and Tahuti is Arumila. So that codified law and order is Odu. So Odu is and Ma'at are one of the same. So those ideas of order, of wisdom, of truth, I would say that those are the exact same. I will say that sometimes people turn the 42 the 42 declarations of Ma'at that's in the Per Em Heru, the Book of the Dead, misnomer Book of the Dead, into like the 42 commandments. That's not necessarily true. Those were 42 different incantations that someone would say to 42 different deities before they're getting their heart weighed in front of Asar. But those principles of Ma'at, they are the same. There's another term that I like to use more so. It's called Wapti. So everything that I seek to teach, I do it under the name of Sheshefun, and there's a reason for that, is that each devotion that I do, I want to demonstrate different parts of holistic purity. I think the power that we all look to ascertain, that we see from, like, the herbs, the talisman, the charms, and the story of Ogbefun is actually telling us about that, is that there is strong spiritual power that comes from a sense of purity. So Wapti means physical purity, mental purity, and spiritual purity. And so the idea of, Iwakwele, which is, gentle character, or, calm character, I feel like if we could find a way to merge those forms, so like a pure, holistic way of being upright, kind of captures some of those concepts. But thank you for for that question. They do connect, so to speak. Let's see. How is the concept described today the same or different than Zeb Tepi? So Zeb Tepi, they're related. So Zeb Tepi means the first time, and this is one of the most perplexing parts of astrophysics, cosmogony, cosmology, is that if things had always been in existence, is that there's the first time to when this had happened. So this is covered in the theory of the physics theory of 8-8, I think, the theory E8 or 8-8, the theory of everything, or string theory. So when people think about, it's some concepts that are almost unable to be comprehended, like the idea that there always was, right? So there was always this primordial ocean. And then even when we're trying to put a finite time on it, like, where was it 1,000,000 years ago? It was here a million years ago. Then what was 1,000,000 years before that? It's like it was always there. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of weird to understand these concepts. But Zep Tepi was the very first time that creation tried to happen. And when we're tying in the different cosmologies, and like they weren't all successful. So again, Ra and Rayet, which is Aleta Mare, Shumare, or Onyankopon and Yankaton and Akan, it's the male and female creative force, and each culture speaks about either a rainbow snake, a rainbow python, or a python with a tail in his mouth, Da or Wedu Da in Vodun culture. And it's saying that these two entities created life, but they weren't able to create it right the first time. So again, in the coffin text, how it says that, Ra found no way it could stand until it rested in Ma'at. So it's saying that before the first time that it happened, that Ra had to make some mistakes. The Sabo, which we call the Ajogun, or sometimes psychological entities. So they could be depression, it could be procrastination, it could be self-doubt, it could be fear, it could be hate, it could be jealousy, avarice, greed, lust, hypersexuality, etc. Is that there are other deities of malevolence that is trying to keep Ra stuck. So a beautiful picture that I love the most, that kind of squashes out two different types of inconsistencies, is that there's a painting where Ra's on the boat and Set is on top of the boat stabbing Apep. And Apep is supposed to be the highest Ajogun, or the highest Sabo in our culture. And it also proves the fact that Set is not the devil. So they would say Set is the devil the same way Eshu is the devil, because Set and Eshu are the same entity. So it's been an ancient quest for invaders to demonize Eshu or demonize Set. So this story, this principle is telling you that, every day there's conflict, right? If that snake of Apep is always at the front of the boat, is that every day you have to do your rituals. Every day you have to do your chants. Every day you probably have to do your yoga. Every day you have to get on the ground, do your push-ups. Every day you have to do your ritual. Is that every day that we will experience some type of hardship. And it wasn't until that Ra was able to keep them in check that he was able to continue to create, as long as with Rayet. So long story short is that with this idea, it is relevant that Zep Tepi was the first time that creation was attempting to be established here on the earth. So thank you all so much for joining Devotion today. I thank you for your hospitality and all your good welcomings, and thank you for letting me sit in on behalf of Baba Kola, and he will be in next week. Until then, everybody be kind to yourselves, be safe, your love, despite any hardship that one had done, your Orisha had not gave up on you. So continue to do your rituals, continue to feed, but continue to learn from your mistakes and grow and be that icon of that suffering. Iriel Odabo.